Now I have a problem. I've been getting more and more into aid climbing, and I have found the very small selection of gear I have bought for aid climbing is dwindling down close to nothing. And instead of buying a whole bunch of rivet hangers and heads and things like that, I thought I would just buy all the supplies to make my own. Now, if you don't know what a rivet hanger is, then you are probably not an aid climber, but to better explain what a rivet hanger is, I need to explain what a rivet is. Essentially, a rivet is like a lower strength bolt. Typically, they're placed in a row in a line, and that's usually why they use rivets instead of bolts, because it's cheaper and quicker. And the issue with rivets is they do not have a hanger like a bolt. So to attach yourself to a rivet, both yourself and or your rope, you need a rivet hanger, which is a cable, either in this configuration, which is a standard configuration, or in this one, which is a cinch hanger. Now here in front of you, I have all the supplies you need to make a rivet hanger. It is super easy to do and simple. I mean, like literally anyone can do it. It is not very difficult or complicated at all. What you need is, first of all, you need a swage tool. I can't really recommend this one. I got it off Amazon for about 65 bucks, and in some early tests I found that the cable was slipping out of the sleeve, and to fix that I took a file and I filed down all these teeth right here to get a stronger and tighter crimp on the cable. And since I've done that, they have all been snapping the cable in my brake test instead of slipping, so I'm comfortable with that. That's to me, breaking the cable is the full strength of a rivet hanger. So I spent about 65 on this, and I know a lot of people recommend the Nyko press, which the Nyko press 510, which I think is about 350 bucks. So about 5 times the cost of this. If you're going to be making a ton of gear, or you just want something that you're pretty confident is going to work, just get that. Just kind of regret buying this now that I have it, but I don't know, it works. The other thing you're gonna need is cable. I have 3/32, 7x7 weave. The form I've been following, I think they recommend a 7x19 because it's more flexible but more prone to fraying. But this should also work just fine. It's real quick, I forgot to mention on the cable, make sure you get galvanized and not stainless. From what I'm reading on the forum post, stainless is more prone to slipping in the sleeve. You will use it in some situations, but for rivet hangers, you want to use galvanized. About 150 feet, I paid, I think $20 for that. I have both aluminum and copper sleeves. When it comes to sleeves, you want to get zinc plated for anything that is not a pasted head. So pretty much rivet hangers, any kind of cables you would add to like a rope or a Funkness device or something like that, you want to get zinc plated and save the non-zinc plated for the pasted part of the head. So I spent, I think, $8 for 120 aluminum and $14 for 50 copper. I made sure to get the sleeves that allow 2 portions of the cable to go through instead of a single strand. You need that on pretty much everything you could be making, unless you're making maybe some heads. But yeah, we'll get into that in another video and really dive deep into that. Other than that, I have a pair of channel locks and a tape measure, and that is really all the tools you need to do this. It's pretty straightforward. It's really fast. If you only need a few rivet hangers or heads or something, just probably buy them. But if you're looking to put together a whole rack, or you're looking to do FAs, then it starts to really make sense to buy all the stuff and make your own, because I think total everything here is about $140. So you would have to buy a lot of rivet hangers and heads and swage your own ropes and things like that before it really starts to become cost effective. I'm going to start off by making a standard style rivet hanger. This is one of the first ones I made just playing around. It's not really made right, so don't look at that too hard. But to start out, you just want to get your cable and you want to measure out between 8, 8.5. That's right there. And the nice thing about this tool is it does cut the cable for me. So I don't have to buy any additional tools, and then I'll just take this cable and get it out of my way. Once you have your cable cut between 8 and 8.5, you need 2 copper sleeves, and you need, sorry, not 2, you need 1 copper sleeve and 1 aluminum sleeve. What I like to do is put the aluminum sleeve on first, and that is the easy part. The hard part is to get, so I have that threaded through, both portions of the cable threaded through the copper sleeve. And now I get to spend a little bit of time fighting to get this copper sleeve, get the cable threaded through the copper sleeve. You want the cable running in opposing directions. Because it's short, it's a little difficult, but you want it short because you want to gain as much height as possible, and the longer you make these, the less reach you'll have for your next piece of gear while aid climbing. It's not super difficult. So at this point I have the cable ran through both the aluminum and the copper sleeve. I'm going to let those hang out a little bit until I get it in the jaw. So at this point we're going to put the copper sleeve, we're going to ignore the aluminum for now, in the corresponding spot in the jaw. You have to check the different sections of the jaw to see which one line up in size with the suede you're using. For me, it's the second one. Once I get it placed, I am going to make sure one side of the copper sleeve is flush with one side of the jaw. I'm going to get the cable pretty close to flush, maybe let it hang out a little bit because sometimes it does kind of balloon out a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and swage that side, and then I'm going to move the copper sleeve until the other side is flush. I don't know if I mentioned it, but you can pinch down lightly with the jaw, and that will hold the sleeve in place, and then you can start moving the wires back and forth to where they need to be before you do your first crimp. So we'll just crimp that side. And at this point, I am almost done. So I just took it and I kind of lined it, or cleaned it up a little bit. You want to keep the copper sleeve off of the bottom. This is where your carabiner is going to clip, and you don't want your bend radius to be on the copper sleeve. So like example, you don't want it like that, because then it's going to pull right there in the middle of the copper sleeve, and chances are you might actually have it fail much lower in strength. Something I like to do, not something I actually found anyone else talking about, someone may have, is I take a pair of channel locks. I'm going to pinch down on the aluminum sleeve, but only on the copper side. So I'll get those on there. You may be able to see I'm only grabbing the one side of the aluminum sleeve on the copper side, and pinch down on that nice and hard, and that locks the cable into the aluminum sleeve, but only on the copper side. So once this is placed on a bolt, so you'd put the non-copper side on a rivet, put it on a rivet, and you pull down, the cable will slip through one side and actually cinch down onto the rivet. And sometimes it'll stay in place, sometimes it'll try to sneak back up, and that'll cinch down on there. The only issue with these style compared to the cinch style is if you want to get it back off, you have to kind of wiggle it and fight it a little bit to get it going, and slide it back up, and then you can remove it. The topic of leaving or removing your rivet hangers, I'm not really sure the stance on that. I think it may be ethics in the area. I know Looking Glass, I've had mixed results. Some routes, every rivet has a hanger. Some routes, none of the rivets have hangers. I am not really sure what is standard practice. I just try to match what I find in my area. So the thing is, if you're going to be leaving rivet hangers for someone else to clip, just remember that it's not just you making the gear for yourself. You're going to have other people clipping it. So make sure you are doing your due diligence, checking your stuff, making sure you are doing it right. Because even though these kind of do fail eventually, if they sit on a route long enough and corrode, you want to make sure that you are putting up good gear and it'll last just as long as any other piece of gear. So that is really all it takes to make one of these standard style rivet hangers. We're going to move on to making a cinch style rivet hanger. And for the cinch style rivet hangers, we're going to measure out a little bit more cable. I've done a little bit playing around with it, and I have found 14 and a half, between 14 and 14 and a half seems to be a good length. So I got that measured out. And I will cut that down. And for the cinch style rivet hangers, you will want 2 copper sleeves and 1 aluminum sleeve. I start out by putting the copper sleeve on first. Get that on there. Not too worried about the loop or the extra cable sticking out just yet. I'll do what I talked about earlier, where I will put the sleeve in the jaw, put some light pressure on it to hold the sleeve. It's really impressive how little pressure it takes to hold it. And at this point, I will start working the cable. I want about roughly a 1-inch loop. Pinch down there, move it down, get it flush on the opposing side of the sleeve and the opposing side of the jaw, and pinch it down there. And I have one side of my cinch hanger done. I will now take the aluminum sleeve and I'll thread the cable through there. Slide it pretty much all the way down against the copper sleeve. So I'm just going to pull this nice and tight. Try to get a long tail there because I'm not doing anything with that aluminum sleeve yet. I just want it out of my way. I will now take my final copper sleeve and thread the cable through there. It does take a little practice to get confident at this. So at this point I have it sitting just like that, so that's why I pulled that loop on this end nice and short to give me lots of cable to work with here. You may be actually able to go a little bit shorter than 14 and a half. Just kind of play with it and see what you like. I'm now going to put this in the jaw, and as before, we have one side of the sleeve flush. We're going to work the cable back and forth, get about that 1-inch loop, and we are going to, whoop, it moved on me. Going to pinch down on that side, move it flush on the side, and pinch down. It's a very, very repetitive process. It is a little satisfying to do, but it's really straightforward and really simple. I definitely feel like you could shrink this down. I did 14 and a half. You could probably do 13 and a half, maybe 13, and still have it work. Like before, we're going to take the channel locks and we're going to pinch down on the aluminum sleeve to kind of lock it on one of the two sides. But what you want to do before you lock it down, you don't want to do it just anywhere. You want to go ahead and push the aluminum sleeve. If you have any gap between the aluminum sleeve and the copper sleeves, push it all the way down until it's touching one of the two copper sleeves, and whichever one it is touching, take those channel locks. You could use vice grips, you could probably use the end of the jaw. I just kind of like the channel locks. You want to try to lock it down on that one side that is touching the copper sleeve. And at that point, it is finished. So the way these work is you put them on the rivet and you pull down on this strand, the one that's not locked down, and it cinches down on the rivet. And that's what you hook everything else to. And then if you want to get it off, this is where the cinch styles are nice. You clip to the opposing loop, and when you pull down on that, it opens. Instead of having to sit there and work it and work it and work it, you can just pull down on that loop. I'm not really sure if there's a difference in strength. I haven't found a difference. Both of them are breaking the cable outside of the sleeves. So they seem to be both rated the same. I should mention this 3/32 cable is rated to, I believe, 980 pounds, which is about 4 kilonewtons. So a pretty low strength. You don't want to whip on it. It could hold you. I've also seen some really trash rivets out there that wouldn't hold 4 kilonewtons. They probably wouldn't hold 2 or 1 kilonewtons. Like really, really bad rivets. I kind of wish there was more of a standard with rivets like there is bolts, but I've seen button heads, countersunk, steel, stainless. I've seen ones bent down, all kinds of stuff. So for where I'm climbing, I think the rivet hanger is almost stronger than the rivets, which is a little wild to me. But yeah, so those are those two finished. And here in just a minute, we're gonna go over there. We're gonna do some brake tests, and we're gonna see how they break, which would be real exciting. Now you can do a lot more with the cable and the swage tool and all that than just making rivet hangers and copper heads. I found a lot of other uses. Some of my beaks, I didn't have any way to attach them. When they're deep in a crack, I wouldn't be able to clip this, so I've added some sleeves, or not sleeves, some cables to some of my beaks here. I've made circle heads, big ones, small ones. Here's one of my big standard style copper heads, big old number 4. Be exciting to place that. You can do other things like I've ripped off more of Scott's gear. Please don't hate me, Scott. This is off of this is a copy of his haul kit cable that he advertises and uses. I got to go back and kind of adjust some things on this. This isn't a final one, but I've tested it a little bit and it works really well. I just got to make some minor adjustments. I've seen where some of the head kits, they attach a cable here to the chisel instead of like what I did where I drilled it, and now that it's drilled and I hammer it, the head back here buckles because it's cheap. One thing I really, really like, as dumb and simple as it is I took this 3-in-1 selfie stick that I take up walls. It's really big and bulky and hard to get in and out of a bag. I added a sleeve to it. So now when I'm climbing, I can just clip it to my hip or clip it to the anchor or something. And the cool thing about when I clip it to the anchor is it can stand out and I can get a cool shot. But yeah, it's super, super convenient having that on there. I mean, at this point, I'm just finding as many things as I can to add cable to. I got a brush here that I can't put a carabiner through, so that's gonna get a cable on it. I'm just kind of having fun with it. You know, it takes a long time to go through 150 feet of cable, but I'm trying. Oh, and last one is a Funkness device. So the interesting thing about this is I made this before I had this tool, and I didn't want to spend the $60 it took to buy the tool, so I went to Home Depot, got all the supplies, got the tools off the shelf, and opened the packaging, made the whole thing right there in the floor at Home Depot, and then put the tools back on the shelf and took the packaging and paid for all the parts. So I mean, that's not, wouldn't recommend that, but it is a cheap way to do it. If you just need 1 or 2 things, it's really easy to knock those out real quick there, just using their tools. Before I move the cameras and the lights over there and we go brake test these two, something that you could help me out with that would be awesome is I am tracking to hit 1,000 subs by the end of this year, maybe beginning next year. And if you could give me a sub and a like, and help me hit that mark, that would be awesome. That's a big goal of mine, and I've been getting close and I've been watching it. It's really exciting to see this channel growing like that, and really pushing, trying to get the content better. I've got a better camera, lights. This is actually the second time I've shot this video because I didn't like the first one, so I decided to come back and reshoot the whole thing because I just didn't like it at all and thought I could do a better job. I'm going to keep this series of DIY gear going. I have some more aid stuff that I need to get done and recorded and put out there, and then I have some ideas for some caving gear. Remember, this is Pits to Peaks. We do some caving down here in the tagged region, and there's some ascending gear that costs quite a bit that I think I can make, and I'm gonna try that and see how it works and try to make a video about that. But I won't waste any more of your time. I'm gonna wrap this up and we'll get over there and we'll do some brake tests and see how that goes. The system I'm using here, I have some 5/8 inserts in the floor of my garage I've used for other projects, but they work really great for this. I have a 2-ton chain fall connected to this bolt here. Here at this end I have another 5/8 insert with a 5/8 bolt right there, and you can see some of my old tests. I have 2 broken cables there, and then those 2 are some of my earlier tests where the cable slipped out of the sleeve before I actually filed the jaw down. And there are our 2 hangers we made in this video that we're going to break, and we're going to see how they break. Breaking the standard style rivet hanger. Hey! It broke just like it was supposed to. Let's get that bolt out of there. And sure enough, it broke at the cable. It didn't rip from the sleeve. That's exactly what we want to see. Alright, we are going to break the cinch style now. Let's see how she broke. And again, exactly what we want to see. It broke the cable and not in either of the swages, either of the sleeves. So that makes me pretty happy right there. Well, that was really cool to see both of those break as intended. Like I said, they're breaking somewhere around, I think, 4 kilonewtons. But to me, if it breaks the cable outside of the swage, it is at full strength of the cable, and that's as good as I can make it, and probably as good as anyone else can make it, because I mean, it's not failing in any odd way. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you tune in for the next one.